I, female, 22, caught my stepbrother, male, 19, destroying my professional clothes I saved for months to buy. My dad won't stand up for me, and I'm starting to suspect something else is going on. This is going to be long, sorry, but I'm still so upset I can barely think straight. So I've been living in this blended family situation for about 4 years now. Ever since my dad, male, 45, married Diane, female, 42, and her son Ethan, male 19, moved in with us. I'm a full-time business admin student, and I work like 25 to 30 hours a week at this coffee shop near campus to pay for school stuff. I still live at home to save money, which honestly sucks sometimes, but rent is crazy expensive here, and things have been getting more and more tense over the past year. I've been trying to build up a professional wardrobe for internships and interviews because that stuff is important in my field. Like, I can't show up in jeans and a t-shirt, you know? So I've been saving up and buying one nice piece at a time whenever I can afford it. Last month, I finally had enough saved up after picking up like a ton of extra shifts to buy this designer blazer I'd been eyeing, plus some matching dress pants and these really nice leather shoes. Altogether, it was like $900, which is a huge amount for me. So last Thursday, I get home from a double shift. I was literally on my feet for 10 hours straight, and I go to hang up my work clothes and immediately notice my new blazer is missing from the closet. At first, I thought maybe I put it somewhere else, but then I realized the pants and shoes were gone too. I started looking everywhere and finally found them in a heap on Ethan's bedroom floor. The blazer had these huge red wine stains all over it. The pants had a tear at the knee, and the shoes had the sole like half ripped off. I just stood there staring at my ruined clothes. My grandma always taught me to take care of my things. She grew up really poor and would say, "If you respect what you have, it will last." So seeing my stuff just thrown around and destroyed like that hit me hard. This isn't even the first time Ethan has taken my stuff without asking. It's been happening since they moved in. He's used my laptop and returned it with food all over the keyboard. He borrowed a necklace my mom gave me before she died when I was 14 to give to some girl he was dating. And once he even took my car for a joyride when he only had a learner's permit. Dad and Diane just brushed it all off as kids being kids, even though I was never like that at his age. I confronted Ethan about the clothes, and he was just playing some video game and barely looked up. He told me he took them for what he said was a job interview, but then later admitted he actually went to a party. He told me it's not a big deal and I can just buy more. He didn't even apologize. Not once. Dad called a family meeting the next day to address the situation, his words. I showed everyone the damaged clothes and the receipts to show how much they cost. Ethan just slouched on the couch the whole time, rolling his eyes and checking his phone. I suggested he should pay for replacements using the money his grandparents gave him for Christmas. Diane immediately shut that down, saying they're just clothes and family shares things. I tried explaining how many hours I worked for those items. Dad started to suggest maybe Ethan could pay for half the cost, but Diane talked over him, saying I was being materialistic and dramatic. I pointed out that taking without permission isn't sharing, it's stealing. Diane said I've never accepted Ethan as family. Completely untrue, by the way. Dad just gave up right in front of me. I started crying, which I hate doing in front of them, and asked why my property rights didn't matter. Ethan actually smirked when Diane declared the matter closed. I felt so betrayed, not just by Diane, who has always favored Ethan, but especially by my dad. He's always been conflict avoidant, but this was a new low. Later that night, I was getting water from the kitchen and overheard Diane telling Ethan, "Don't worry about it, she'll get over it," when they thought I was in my room. I honestly can't believe this is happening. Nearly a week has passed, and nothing has been resolved. I'm still out $900, and apparently I'm supposed to just accept that. The whole situation has made me start noticing other things too, like how Diane has been having a lot of work dinners with her boss Michael, male, 47 lately. They often last until midnight or later, and she's been dressing different for these dinners, like way more makeup and these tight dresses that seem weird for work stuff. She's also been super protective of her phone lately, taking it even to the bathroom. The other day, she asked me to check the time on her phone while she was cooking, and a text from Michael popped up saying, "Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again." At the time, I thought maybe they'd closed a big deal or something, but now I'm wondering if there's more going on. I've been thinking about this for days, and I've decided that if Diane won't respect my property and my dad won't stand up for me, maybe I don't need to protect whatever Diane has going on with Michael. I mean, I'm not 100% sure there's anything happening, but there are definitely some red flags. Am I overreacting about the clothes? Part of me feels like I should just let it go to keep the peace, but another part of me is furious that I worked so hard for something that was destroyed in one night with zero consequences. Edit. Some people are asking if I've talked to my dad alone. Yes, I tried the next day. He just said, "You know how Diane gets," and promised to make it up to me somehow, which probably means he'll buy me dinner once, then consider it resolved. Edit 2. To clarify about the clothes, the blazer was a dark navy Theory blazer, $425. The pants were matching Theory slacks, $275, and the shoes were leather Cole Haan Oxfords, $200. These weren't just random mall clothes. They were investment pieces I needed for my spring internship interviews. Edit 3. Someone asked about locks. Yes, I've considered getting a lock for my door, but Diane has this whole thing about how we're family and family doesn't lock doors. My dad backed her up on this rule when I brought it up last year after Ethan went through my dresser. Edit 4. Thanks for all the validation that I'm not crazy. I was starting to doubt myself with Diane constantly telling me I'm overreacting. And no, Ethan has never respected boundaries. It's been a pattern since day one, but everything gets swept under the rug because he's still adjusting, or whatever excuse they come up with. Now for the first update. I exposed my stepmom's affair, and now everything has blown up. First, thanks to everyone who commented on my previous post. I read every single comment, even though I couldn't respond to all of them. To those who suggested I should talk to my dad alone again, I tried that, and he just kept making excuses for Diane and Ethan. And to the many people who suggested I get a lockbox or safe, you were totally right, and I wish I had done that sooner. So it's been almost 2 weeks since the clothing incident, and absolutely nothing got resolved. No apology from Ethan, no offer to replace my stuff, no acknowledgement from Diane that what he did was wrong. My dad kept saying he would handle it, but never actually did anything. I was still out $900, and everyone was just going on with their lives like nothing happened. I need to say that I'm not usually a vindictive person. I believe in second chances. But with Diane and Ethan, this wasn't a one-time thing. This was years of Diane favoring Ethan, letting him disrespect my boundaries, and my dad never standing up for me. The clothes incident was just like the final straw, I guess. So I started paying closer attention to those work dinners Diane was having with her boss Michael. I know some people in the comments thought I was trying to deflect from the main issue, but the more I thought about it, the more suspicious it seemed. For about 2 weeks, I basically turned into this amateur detective, which I know sounds pathetic, but whatever. I would note when she left for these dinners and check the company's social media to see if there were actually any work events happening. There weren't. I got a friend who works at the same company to confirm there weren't any major projects or deadlines that would require late-night meetings. I took pictures when I happened to be near the restaurants where they were meeting. Okay, I was definitely following her a couple times. They were clearly not just having professional meetings. Like, he was holding her hand across the table, and I even saw them kissing goodbye in the parking lot once. Oh, and Diane apparently forgot that her iPad is connected to the same Apple ID as her phone, so all her text messages show up there too. The messages between her and Michael were explicit. I took screenshots, which felt gross, but I needed proof. I even followed her one night when she said she was going to a strategy dinner and watched her go into Michael's apartment building at like 9 p.m. She didn't leave until after 1 a.m. I sat in my car the whole time feeling like a complete creep. I felt terrible about invading Diane's privacy like this. I really did. But at the same time, nobody seemed to care about my privacy or my boundaries when Ethan was going through my stuff and ruining my clothes. And Diane has been letting that happen for years. So yeah, I felt justified, even though part of me knew it was wrong. Last Sunday, Diane was at some spa day, probably with Michael to be honest, and Ethan was at a friend's house, so I decided it was time to talk to my dad alone. I was so nervous, I thought I was going to throw up. I went to his office where he was doing some work and asked if we could talk about something important. He looked worried and was like, "Are you in some kind of trouble?" I said no, but I found out something about Diane that he needed to know. I started by showing him the timeline I'd made of all these suspicious work dinners that didn't match up with any actual work events. He seemed confused at first, like he couldn't figure out why I was tracking Diane's schedule. Then I showed him the pictures. His face completely changed. He didn't say anything for what felt like forever. I told him I was really sorry, but I thought he should know. He asked in a super quiet voice how long I'd suspected. I told him a few weeks, since around when the clothing incident happened. He was rubbing his wedding ring and asked if I was absolutely sure about this. That's when I showed him the text messages. He just put his head in his hands and started making this sound I've never heard before. I reached out to touch his shoulder, but then pulled back because I wasn't sure what to do. After a while, he thanked me and said he needed some time to process everything. The rest of the day was awful. We were both just waiting for Diane to get home, and my dad kept getting angrier as he looked through all the evidence again. I went to my room because I couldn't handle it, but I could hear him pacing around downstairs. When Diane finally got home around 8 p.m., I stayed in my room but could hear them through the walls. At first, my dad said they could work through this if she was honest with him, but then their voices got louder. She denied everything at first. She said I was a liar who was trying to cause problems because of the clothes situation, her words. But then my dad must have shown her the pictures because suddenly she changed her story. She tried to blame my dad, said he was always working and emotionally unavailable. I heard her say Michael appreciates her, and my dad got really angry. That's when she finally admitted it had been going on for like 6 months. 6 months! My dad told her to get out, said he wanted her out of the house that night. But then things got even worse because Ethan came home right in the middle of all this. He heard everything, including the part about me gathering the evidence. He ran up to my room and started pounding on the door. He was yelling that I ruined our family over some stupid clothes and asked what was wrong with me. He said I was a psycho and I've been trying to get rid of them since day one. I didn't open the door. I texted my friend to see if I could stay at her place, but she wasn't answering. I could hear Diane crying and trying to calm Ethan down in the hallway. Eventually, they went to his room and I could hear them packing. I couldn't sleep at all that night, kept thinking about what Ethan said. Was this really all because of the clothes? Or was it because of everything that had built up over 4 years? I don't even know anymore. When I woke up the next morning, my phone was blowing up. 14 missed calls. 5 from Diane, begging me to talk to my dad and convince him to forgive her. 3 from Ethan, including voicemails calling me a vindictive bitch who destroyed our family. There were a lot of other names too, but whatever. 2 from Diane's sister saying I was a homewrecker who should have minded my own business. 4 from my dad's family, checking if I was okay. And the weirdest part, in the middle of all this chaos, I got a call about a job interview I had completely forgotten about. Had to reschedule while trying not to sound like my entire life was falling apart. The HR lady probably thought I was on drugs or something. So that's where things stand now. Diane is staying with her sister across town. Ethan went with her instead of staying with us. My dad is meeting with divorce lawyers and barely talking except about practical stuff like bills and house things. And the extended family is taking sides. Diane's family thinks I'm the devil, and my dad's family is being supportive, but I can tell some of them think I went too far. I honestly never expected it to blow up like this. I thought maybe my dad would confront Diane, they'd fight, and then maybe he'd finally stand up for me about the clothes situation. I didn't think he'd immediately kick her out and file for divorce. Look, I know what I did was extreme. Maybe I shouldn't have invaded her privacy like that. Maybe I should have just accepted that I was never going to get justice for my ruined clothes and moved on. But after years of being treated like my feelings and my belongings don't matter, I just snapped. But did I ruin a marriage over clothes? That's what Ethan thinks. But the marriage was already ruined when Diane started cheating, right? She ruined it, not me. I just exposed the truth. I still feel sick about the whole thing, though. Did I go too far? Edit. Some people are asking if I had other options before going nuclear. Yes, I tried talking to my dad multiple times. I tried talking directly to Diane and Ethan. I even suggested family counseling after the clothes incident, but Diane said it was unnecessary drama. Edit 2. To those saying I should have just moved out, do you know how expensive rent is these days? I'm a full-time student working at a coffee shop. Moving out would mean dropping out of school because I'd have to work full-time. Edit 3. For everyone commenting that I'm justifying what I did, yeah, maybe I am. I'm still processing everything and trying to figure out if I did the right thing or if I went way overboard. It's confusing. Edit 4. A lot of you are asking about my dad and how he's doing. He's not great. Spends most of his time in his office. When we do talk, it's just about practical stuff. I think he's in shock. I've tried to check on him, but he keeps saying he's fine, even though he's obviously not. Now for the second update. So, I guess this is the final chapter in this whole mess. It's been about a month since everything blew up, and honestly, I've been putting off posting this update because I'm still processing everything. Like, every time I sit down to write it out, I just stare at my screen for 20 minutes and then close the tab. But so many people have messaged me asking for an update that I figured I should just get it over with. So here's what's happened in the past month. My dad filed for divorce, like immediately after finding out about Diane's affair. Like, he had a lawyer the very next day. I was honestly shocked at how quickly he moved on this. This is the same man who takes 3 weeks to decide what color to paint the bathroom, but apparently when it comes to divorce, he's suddenly super quick. The house is already on the market, and we're looking at apartments closer to my campus. We should be moving in like 2 to 3 weeks if everything goes according to plan, which it probably won't because nothing in my life ever does, lol. But here's where things get even messier. Somehow, Diane's affair got exposed at her workplace too. I have no idea how this happened. Maybe her sister told someone, or maybe someone from work saw them together at one of those restaurants I followed them to. I really don't know, but Diane ended up losing her job because apparently there's some strict policy against managers dating people who report to them. So now she's jobless and getting divorced. And I never wanted that to happen. I just wanted my dad to know the truth. I never thought about her job situation at all. Meanwhile, I failed this really important midterm because I couldn't focus on studying with all this family drama happening. I was so sure I was going to have to retake the entire class, but when I explained to my professor that I was dealing with a family crisis, I was super vague, don't worry. He actually let me retake it. I still didn't do amazing, but at least I passed. Oh, and get this. Ethan is now working part-time at some electronics store to help Diane with rent. I found this out through my dad, who heard it from Diane during one of their divorce discussions. Apparently, her savings aren't great, and with her loss of income, they're struggling a bit. Part of me felt weirdly satisfied about this, which makes me feel like a terrible person. But another part of me feels really guilty. The extended family situation is exactly what you'd expect. Diane's family basically thinks I'm Satan incarnate. Her sister literally called me a calculating little bitch who deliberately destroyed a marriage over some clothes, which is not what happened. The clothes were just the final straw after years of disrespect. And by the way, she didn't get married just so her son could ruin my stuff. But my dad's family has been surprisingly supportive. My aunt Kathy actually told me she always thought something was off about Diane, but never felt like it was her place to say anything. And my grandma sent me this really sweet card saying she was proud of me for being brave enough to tell the truth, even when it was hard, which made me cry for like an hour straight because I really needed to hear that from someone. I've been to therapy 3 times now. My school has free counseling services, thank God, to try to process all my conflicted feelings about this. On one hand, I never meant to completely blow up everyone's lives. But on the other hand, I knew exposing the affair would probably end their marriage. My therapist is helping me understand that I'm not responsible for Diane's choices. She chose to cheat. She chose to let Ethan disrespect my boundaries for years. Those weren't my choices. But the biggest thing that's happened is that my dad and I had this really important conversation last week. He asked me to dinner at my favorite restaurant, and I thought we were just going to talk about apartment hunting. But as soon as we sat down, he told me he needed to apologize to me. I was so confused because, he didn't do anything wrong. But he said he'd been reflecting a lot and realized his pattern of conflict avoidance had really failed me. I tried to downplay it, but he wouldn't let me brush it off. He admitted he knew Diane often favored Ethan unfairly, but never said anything because he was afraid of causing tension in the marriage. I started crying right there in the restaurant, which was super embarrassing. I asked him why he never said anything all those times when I felt so alone, and he just looked really sad. He said he was afraid of making things worse and didn't realize how much I was suffering, which made me cry even harder. I told him that sometimes I felt like I didn't matter to him as much as keeping Diane happy. He actually started crying too and said I've always mattered most to him, and seeing me hurt was the worst feeling in the world. But he didn't know how to fix things without making everything worse. I finally admitted that part of why I exposed the affair was because I felt like no one was protecting me, and if he wasn't going to stand up for me, I had to stand up for myself. He just nodded and said, I failed you as a father in that moment. We agreed that we need to communicate better going forward. He promised to be more assertive and present in our relationship, and I promised to come to him directly instead of bottling things up until I explode. But here's where things get really weird. Last week, I got an email from Ethan of all people. He sent me $450, half the value of my ruined clothes, through Venmo with a message saying he realized how entitled he'd been and regretted his actions. I was really surprised. I wrote back thanking him for the payment, but explaining that the money was never really the main issue. It was the disrespect and lack of accountability. He asked if we could meet for coffee to talk. My first instinct was hell no, but after talking it over with my therapist, I decided to give it a chance. So 3 days ago, we met at this coffee shop halfway between our places. Ethan showed up like 15 minutes late, and honestly, he looked terrible, like he'd lost weight and wasn't sleeping well. I offered to buy him coffee, but he seemed really uncomfortable and said no. Right away, he apologized for those threatening voicemails he left when he was angry. I acknowledged the apology, but kept my distance because, well, years of history, you know. Then he said something that really surprised me. He told me he'd been discovering that Diane had been lying to him about all kinds of things for years. I asked what kind of things, and he said Diane had been telling him that I was constantly complaining about him behind his back and trying to get my dad to kick them out, which is absolutely not true. I mainly just wanted mutual respect and basic boundaries. And then he admitted that Diane had actually encouraged him to take my things, saying we needed to share as family. I asked if Diane had specifically told him to take my professional clothes, and he looked away, which was basically a yes, and said Diane had suggested it after I had apparently refused to loan Diane the blazer, which is also not true. She never even asked to borrow it. I just sat there in silence trying to process this. This whole time, I thought Ethan was just a spoiled brat who didn't respect my stuff. But it turns out Diane was actively encouraging him to take my things. That's so messed up. Ethan actually started crying right there in the coffee shop, said he felt his biological dad had abandoned him, and now his mom had betrayed him too. I reached out and touched his arm, our first positive contact in years, and told him I understood what it was like to lose a parent. My mom died when I was 14, and then I felt like an outsider in my own family when Diane and Ethan moved in. We ended up talking for almost 3 hours. By the end, we agreed to try to work on building some kind of relationship that's not defined by our parents' issues. I'm not saying we're suddenly best friends or anything, but I think we both realized we've been pawns in Diane's weird games for years. As for my dad, he's been going on casual dates already, which is weird to witness, but whatever makes him happy, I guess. He seems happier despite all the divorce stress. We're even talking about starting family therapy sessions, me, Dad, and maybe Ethan, to start healing from all the dysfunction. I still have so many questions that keep me up at night. Was exposing the affair the right thing to do, despite all the consequences? Can I ever forgive Diane for how she manipulated everyone? How do I build a relationship with Ethan after everything that's happened? I don't have answers yet, but I'm somewhat hopeful that all of us can heal independently, even if our family will never be the same. Sometimes, standing up for yourself ends up hurting people you never intended to hurt. That doesn't mean you should accept being disrespected or devalued, but finding that balance is something I'm still learning. Edit. For those asking if I regret what I did, it's complicated. I regret the pain it's caused, but I don't regret standing up for myself. I just wish I could have found a way to do it that didn't blow up literally everyone's lives. Edit 2. Several people have asked if Diane has reached out to apologize. No, she hasn't. She's still blaming me for ruining her life, according to my dad. I'm not holding my breath for an apology. Edit 3. To the person who asked if I stole from Diane or Ethan as revenge for my clothes, no! Why would you even ask that? I've never taken their stuff without permission. That's literally what I was upset about them doing to me. Edit 4. A lot of comments are calling Diane some variation of evil mastermind. I don't think she was sitting around plotting to destroy my life. I think she's just selfish and protective of her son to an unhealthy degree, and didn't see me as an equal member of the family. Still awful, but not like comic book villain level. Edit 5. No, I will not be meeting Michael, Diane's affair partner, for coffee too, lol. Several people suggested this for closure, but that would be super weird and unnecessary. I've never even spoken directly to the guy.